The culture from when I first got involved with Tauranga City Council was a long time ago, and it was with I knew a former committee secretary. So even back then, and that was a few years ago now, there were, I think, 3 committee secretaries at the time, and the culture of the elected members, you've got to remember Greg Brownless was in there at that stage as an elected member, not as a mayor. And Stuart Crosby wasn't mayor at that stage. Again, just an elected member. They would walk out of a meeting and go to the committee secretary and say, find a reason to put that meeting's minutes in confidential if they didn't want the public to know something. So a lot of people don't understand the Privacy Act or the Official Information Act or the Local Government and Official Information and Meetings Act, or whatever it's called, that there is actually a requirement that all things are public knowledge. You've got to have an excuse of certain things so that it is not. But to think that the elected members didn't know what those reasons are, that they required the committee secretary, whoever that was, to come up with a reason to bury this meeting so the public don't find out the deal we just did. I think this has been coming for a long time. It's just got worse. I don't believe it's not always been a, hey, we'll tell them what they need to hear to give me the answer I want. I think that's been going on for a little bit. That's been a lot of reverse engineering of elected members who didn't realise they are, what was the other staff member said, we're the ones that are permanent, they have to apply for their job every 3 years. And so you go, why would I defer my wise and knowledgeable judgment and my area of expertise to a guy that might not be here in 3 years? So I will structure it in such a way. So I don't think that is, I think that's got worse. So at the time, I found it shocking at the time. I actually had a word to I said, how often is this happening? And it's like, oh, I can't say, but it happens on a regular enough basis that we've got to go and look up, find a piece in there where somebody mentions something that you can go, oh, well, that's going to be confidential in relation to commercial. So, commercial interest. Okay, well, a commercial interest, that'll come back down to a dollar figure that he's going to be quoting. Well, we can't, therefore we can't let it go public because then other competitors will know what to quote. So we'll find something. And so they'd find something to shove files into confidential. And so that's got to be dating back quite a few years. As we've moved forward, that culture of protectionism seems to have got worse, but it seems to have got worse in a structured way. So it's if you're not going to bat the party line, then you won't get hired. So you'll start batting the party line if you want to stay in your job. And that's where I think some of the really good people that are still there are at a level where they literally can't say something, because if they do, they won't be in there anymore. Fiscal responsibility on the individuals making the decisions. It's as simple as that. You make it so that any other job, you go and blow. What if they blow on the poster child for their own stuff up? They've gone and painted a target on a guy and said, oh, it's all his own mistakes. If you look at the value they spent just in security guards, when I bothered reading up their spin some months back, it was at 1.6 million back then. And that has to be at least 3-4 months ago. Maybe, I think it was about that far back. I've got the time travel thing going forward down fine, but the back part's really messing with me. If they were at 1.6 then, that was before they then got personal security guards for Kirsty and personal security guards for, or security firm for Gary. That was before they had to ask the report writers to get more reports written. If you've ever read any of the reports and you've got a good sense of humour, you'd be able to highlight it with ideally, and this statement is for a particular staff member at council, with a crayon so that he can understand it, and he knows who he is, that you're that stupid that you've written a report in such a way, it's been so well structured to basically say, you'll have to pay me some more. for me to find what you're asking me to find that I haven't been able to find yet, but it doesn't mean it's not there. And I'm not joking, it's pretty much worded along those lines. Not that that can, from a public perspective, if you've got a report writer telling you what you paid me to find I can't, but just because I couldn't find it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So if you want the evidence you're asking me to find, come on, just a little bit more cash, please. Thank you very much. And there's been a couple of staff members, obviously, that have now been outed. I don't believe it's enough. And if those two are the key reason that all the rest have followed suit, that'd be great, because maybe the culture will change on its own. But I don't believe that there will be any form of change without personal accountability, personal responsibility, and financial accountability and responsibility. If the writer telling you you've got to move out of your house loses their house if they're wrong, if they are personally liable, and that's what I think, no one has been willing to look it up for me. I would, if I had enough time and money to look into it myself, I'd love to spend the time doing it. The section of the Local Government Act that says that you are protected when you're doing your job, as I said earlier, the yuppie Nuremberg defence, that you're not protected if you're acting in bad faith. Well, does that mean that the individual now becomes liable if you can show they've acted in bad faith? So let's say, for example, you provide enough evidence to show that somebody near the top has instructed others to do things that are unlawful. Can they claim they're acting in good faith? Because there is no, if I recall correctly, there is no, one of my favourite sayings, if I can recall correctly, there is no definition of bad faith, there's only a definition of good faith. Everything that falls out of the definition of good faith, is it bad faith or is it an error? So you could quite easily start structuring around individual staff members, when they started, when the problem started, how far and where did the instruction come from? Well, you try getting a copy of the emails internally. Oh, not public knowledge. Oh, privileged. Oh, legal opinion. Oh, we don't have to hand that over. I've got multiple examples of going for Official Information Act requests or LGEMA requests and getting one answer, and you can't have this other stuff. Right back explaining why they're wrong. Okay, here's the second answer, but you can't have the other stuff. Another letter back. Well, we'll give you some of item 4, but you can't have any of item 3 or 5. Writing to the Ombudsman. You will give them everything. Come back, here's the rest of your information. And then we've got a local elected member writing, which I can get you a copy of the email, stating that he wants that individual shut down from being able to ask questions because he is wasting so much ratepayers' time and money with these staff running around answering these stupid requests. Look, he's asked 5 in this period of time, or 30 in this period of time. The one that we pulled out as an example was this one where you say it's been asked 5 times. It wasn't. It was asked once. And if your staff had done their job and answered everything like they're legally required to, which the Ombudsman backed us 12 months later to get it, to say, yes, give it to them, how is that us wasting your staff's time? Larry Baldock, please explain that to me. You used to be in Parliament. I would have thought you had a clue. So you know the staff are intentionally misleading people. You know that they are required to give this. And when it finally came out at the end, who did you blame? Oh, so you're part of the problem. Awesome. At least I know who I'm not voting for. That's 1 down. Unfortunately, it's 11. But you've got 1 down. This guy, who used to be someone that I actually would have looked up to, I'm sitting there going, and not just because he's taller than me, but as a guy that you sit there and go, you're promoting the staff to withhold information they're legally obliged to hand over. I would consider that an act of bad faith. Can I isolate you now outside of your protection of your job? Because they're trying to do it to Danny. Hey, your company's getting attacked. Oh, we know the company's in liquidation. So they name the director. So they have no intention of getting any money out of Bella Vista. They can't. They'd have to be fools. The liquidator's report says it's got $28, and that's only because the liquidator doesn't bill $28 in a 6-minute increment. So they end up going, oh, you've got a company you know you can't touch, And again, if I'm correct, the liquidation rules are that a liquidator chooses if it can be sued or sue, which means I think they can actually opt out and say, well, look, we've got no money, write us off, because they're not going to get anything. They're getting a conviction against a company that's got nothing. So who were they really after? I mean, what sort of fool goes after something that has got nothing? So you then go after, so it was about the director. So you've peeled this back to personal accountability, and that's okay. Then it's got to go both ways, surely. And that's where I say what's got to change is that personal accountability, financial responsibility for it. And at the end of every report you write, it needs to have on there, if I am misleading you in any way, shape, or form, my resignation is attached, because, hey, and they don't have to cash in on it. They could turn around and say, hey, look, we understand it was a genuine mistake. You actually stuffed up. You forgot that there was a page 8. Whatever it might be. Doesn't mean they have to cash in on it, but as long as the people responsible know that if they do mislead intentionally and they aren't protected by their job, that they can get rolled with no compensation. The council, in my belief, is getting a lot of reverse engineering done with their reports. So they are giving an indicator on the outcome they would like, or what they are wanting. I don't know if it's, I don't know how the process is working. I don't know if that's someone way up the top saying, I'm pretty certain it's not Greg Brownless, because when I had a meeting with Greg Brownless, he didn't know who MB was, which in the whole scheme of things, you'd think, the mayor would know who the authorising authority that gives him power would be in relation to building consents, but he didn't. But on the bright side, neither did one of the Environment Court judges. So he's, hanging out with the right crowd. They are writing a report. Someone in there is saying, this is what we're proposing to councillors, or this is our preferred option. Go in and do an investigation. And the families in Westridge Drive proved this point. There was a gentleman there, I think it was Linton, down there. He did a review when they were trying to put the Smiths Farm thing through. And at Smiths Farm, council presented a roading report that said Westridge Drive is the best entry point for this. And it gave all the traffic numbers and did all the calculations. Again, I don't think they expected that there were some people up that street that had a clue. So a lot of the home residents got together and they looked into it and went over and critiqued the review. They also found a review written a number of years previously that said that Westridge Drive was not the best access for that area and that it should be off, yada yada, when there was lower traffic volumes. You say, well, when it's higher traffic, you've said it's too much additional traffic for this street, but now you're saying even though there's more traffic, this street is, so that was presented to council and said, well, you've got one report saying this and another report saying this. So you cherry picked which report you wanted, and they jumped up in arms and said, no, well, different companies, right, you'll note those are different companies and the different company writes a different report based on the information on how they see it. And what they didn't expect to happen was someone to say, yes, you're quite correct, different companies often do that. But when it's the same author because she changed companies, it kind of indicates that you had made a predetermined conclusion on what you'd prefer, and the individual has now written a report that they knew you would like and pay for. I mean, go back to the original King James Bible. The beginning of it, if I read it right, paraphrased in Sam language, is when they presented the book to the king. Oh, wise and knowledgeable king, we hope you find our translation to your liking. Oh, please don't cut off our heads. The council's done something similar. It's, hey, someone's not going to keep getting reports sent to them if they're not saying what they need to say. That's in itself a pollution of the professions. If I've got to say it this way, otherwise I ain't going to get any more contracts, well, what are you going to say? That in itself needs to be looked at. Can you trust the report writer if you know the report writer is writing what you want to hear? Hey, don't get me wrong, in life you like hanging around people that tell you you're great. But sometimes you need a hard and fast slap upside of the head to say, you're stuffing this up. And so from that angle, they're writing or appear to be getting report writers that will say what they want. Now, you can you could equally say, therefore, anyone getting a report written from the other side will do the same thing, which is why I don't believe council can write the why report. They can't, they just literally can't do it. They're going to find someone to do it, but I find it remarkable they've taken so long, which kind of implies, are they having difficulty finding someone that's going to say what they want? Because there must be a load of QCs out there that are quite happy to dip their hand into Tauranga ratepayers' money and, you know, rape us a little bit more and just take some more money off us. That'll be great. If Heath hadn't given the most excellent disclaimer, he would have been an interesting character to actually only do the why report. But the way he worded it was brilliant, in that he said, again, paraphrased in my words, I can't write the why report because I've done the what. And because of my outcomes of the what report, it could be argued that I might be biased in how I do the why report, whether or not it would be in favour of my how report or my what report. Which, when you think about that, think that through, it's very sound and fair logic. No matter which way he found in the why report, you'd either have council saying, oh, well, he's saying that to justify what he found in the what report. Or you'd have the other team saying, oh, what he found in the why report is because he's justifying what he did. So he would be in a lose-lose regardless of what determination he came to. And he also, by stating, I know, or these reports need to be robustly tested. The reports he had but no choice to rely on because that was the ring-fenced information he was given to run with. You can't look outside this, this is all the facts. He couldn't find out that, and I've got an example, again, I shouldn't find it funny because it's my rates. I've got examples of them having a building file that is clearly wrong. You present them with another page with their stamp on it and they won't accept it. Oh, well, how do we know that's accurate? When did you stamp it? Each one of those building inspections, and for them to say, the Rose McLaughlin report's got it in there too, and unfortunately for council, they sent me a copy of that, so you obviously wanted me to have it. They may have an internal email problem too, but that's another argument. I won't say which staff member's fault that is. They have got a report that clearly states it's not to be used for certain circumstances. And you go, well, when that person wrote that report, they couldn't find certain files. They didn't bother checking the building file. The LIM report, they didn't do the RMA report. They just went ahead and said, oh, well, what we've gone and looked up is what I've been given. In other words, another ring-fenced report. So if you as an average person can't look at that and say, well, wait a minute, why aren't you allowed to go outside that scope? Now, I get with a lot of report writing, you want to ring-fence it from a financial cost perspective, such as the civil engineer they've been using to drill holes to not find holes that don't exist, but doesn't mean that they're not necessarily not there. I hope I used enough double negatives in that. Oh, thank you. That what they've gone and done is, I don't want a lawyer looking up child support issues if the argument is family support, unless it's relevant. And so I do understand the whole idea of ring fencing is to limit your costs of paying the individual to go look for it. But when you limit them to stuff that only makes you look like you're in the right position, kind of looks a little bit, faulty. As much as I'd like to say MB, I have my doubts about MB because MB have been very, very slack about, and I know of 3 different reports that MB is meant to be finding what are blatantly obvious facts that they are saying, oh, well, we're gonna sit back and just watch what happens here. So your job isn't actually to sit back and watch what happens. We've already got one writer has got an ombudsman answer saying, no, MB's wrong, this isn't my job to find the answer to this. This is actually MB's job, send it back to MB and tell them to do their bloody job. We've then got MB telling on another case that is very much same. Oh, you need to send that to the ombudsman, that's not our choice to do this. So, well, we've actually already got an answer from somewhere else with a very similar circumstance, saying that it actually is your job. So how about instead of sending us on the 12-month cycle of wasting my time, you do your job. So from that angle, I'm a little bit hesitant to say it should be MB. I would prefer that it was a little bit more senior than that, because there is potentially some malicious bad faith issues going on, and I don't necessarily know that MB is the right one to do that. The problem with MB appointing them is making certain that there's no one in that group at MB making that determination that have any links with any of the individuals they're now going to be having to call into critique. So the pessimist in me says I don't trust them. The optimist in me says it's the place to ask. If I had my way, you'd be wanting to do it with a panel, not with an individual, and you'd be wanting 3 chosen to review. So my best example of that is you could say council gets to choose somebody, the builder, homeowners get to choose somebody, and then a third independent gets chosen by MB to oversee the 2, and until they can actually get at least all 3 of them to agree on a particular point. So I use land valuations as an example. With property deals I've seen in the past where, property splits, he gets a land valuation because he's going to buy the house, she gets a land valuation, and those 2 land values are different, that the valuers are very unlikely to go, oh, you know what, that other value is actually right. So that ain't going to happen. So the court appoints a third one to determine which one of them is right, or split the difference, or whatever it might be. So I would say that to me would be more expensive, but that to me would be the better way to do it, because you then don't have somebody under a ring-fenced set of information. And to claim that the information wasn't available for some of those reports, when those reports were done by building inspectors that went out on site running their iPads or Apple screens or whatever it is that they sign off, you would have had the data at the time. Had they checked that Bella Vista Homes didn't actually have the signed form that they got handed at the time, they got printed off. So did that guy not update the system when he went back? Or did you lose those files? Or was that part of the mistake made when your staff got told to delete files? Did you accidentally delete too much? And then you handed it over here. It wasn't actually ring-fenced, it was just actually pure incompetence. And you didn't actually have the information because you made a mistake. And is it a genuine mistake? Or is it a mistake to make someone look bad? In building-related issues, it's MB. Or they're meant to. And like I said, we've got files sent off to MB that are blatant, wildly blatant. And they didn't even send an inspector out to look. And we're talking about a drawing showing that council signed off, showing the stormwater and plumbing down the right-hand side of a house, and them presenting us a sign saying this is what was built, and visibly on site you can see it runs down the left-hand side of the house, and it's a concrete foundation with the pipes coming out the side of the concrete. So it's not like you dug it in afterwards. And MB went, oh no, council must be right because they said their file's correct. And you go, well, why don't you come out and have a look? Actually come and inspect it. Because I got a civil engineer friend to come and have a look at it, and he looked at it and said, there's no way they put that in afterwards. There's no cuts in the concrete to put the piping in. So unless he directionally drilled through a concrete foundation, he's magically put it in place. And when the guy came out and signed it off, you genuinely telling me your inspectors are so bad that they couldn't tell the difference between all the downpipes coming out joining up to the ground on the right-hand side versus the left-hand side of the house? Is this the level of problem we have? In which case, why are they still there? Why are the management that monitor them and look after them or guide them or whatever it is the manager's meant to do not picked up that they're that incompetent? So if this guy's so stupid that he can't tell it, and I don't believe he is because I've met him and he's not, I personally don't think that's the case. But if the file's that bad, it's either A or B, isn't it? You've either lost the page or the guy's stupid. And if the guy's stupid and management know it and they let him stay there, then 2 people need to go. You shouldn't be charging us as ratepayers that much wages for someone that doesn't know what they're doing. And yet they keep repeating it. And every time you take it to them, write the word complaint, send it. I can give you the email about that. That came directly from Kirsty. Just put complaint on the top of something. That's our complaints process.